Who's going to make the Big 12 championship game? There's only 2 weeks left. Let's break out the scenarios. Jumping into Ben Williams' awesome website, cfb.app/Big12/2025. This lays out all the probabilities for the Big 12 title game. Now let's look into it. Right now, the Big 12 title game is slotted for Texas Tech and BYU. One loss in conference, one loss in general. Now we can break out the probabilities too for each team. So based on 32,768 possible outcomes, there are 8 possible championship game matchups. The most likely teams in the championship game are Texas Tech with a 93% probability, BYU with a roughly 62% probability, Arizona State with 19% probability, Cincinnati 13, Houston 6, almost 7, and Utah 6. Man, it's crazy. We're going to play with this and look at what type of scenarios we can build out. We can foresee who's going to be in the Big 12 championship game. All right. Well, as it is, it's Texas Tech and BYU. If Texas Tech wins their last game versus West Virginia, they're in. 100%, no questions asked. If BYU wins their last 2 games versus Cincinnati, that's a game at Cincinnati, and CF, they're in. No questions asked. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. But if there are some unexpected losses within those games, things get a little bit wild. And let's break it out. Okay, so we've really got 6 teams in contention. Texas Tech, BYU, Houston, Utah, Arizona State, and Cincinnati. Let's just, for the sake of discussion, say that Houston wins out, that Utah wins out, last 2 games, Arizona State wins out, and that Cincinnati wins their last game versus TCU. All those are pretty likely scenarios. As we see, it doesn't change the matchup, though. Texas Tech at BYU. Now let's just play with some of these wins, though. Okay, so let's say that BYU happens to lose to Cincinnati. Look what happens here. If Cincinnati wins the game versus BYU in Week 13 and all the rest of these schools went out, then you're looking at a Texas Tech-Utah matchup. Let's just play around more and see if BYU were to lose versus UCF. Look, nothing else changes under these circumstances. So the big swing game here we're looking at is the Cincinnati-BYU game. We know that. That is a massive game for Big 12 title implications. Cincinnati and BYU is a huge swing factor in so many different ways. But folks, I got to show you something. This is absolutely wild. Let's just say that Cincinnati does beat BYU in Week 13, and Cincinnati happens to lose in Week 14 at TCU after that big victory over BYU. What happens to the championship game? It changes from Utah to Arizona State based on tiebreakers changing. So if Cincinnati upsets BYU in Week 13 and then loses in Week 14 at TCU, that jumps Arizona State over Utah to play Texas Tech in the Big 12 title game. That's how crazy this becomes if Cincinnati beats BYU. Huge swing game again. So other pathways for Arizona State to get in the championship game. If Utah were to lose any of their last 2 games, that gives Arizona State a huge leg up. I got to show you guys some other crazy scenario here too for a Big 12 championship game. Let's just say that Cincinnati beats TCU and loses to BYU. But check this out. If Texas Tech were to lose to West Virginia with all the rest of these teams winning, look what happens. It's a Utah and BYU Holy War Big 12 championship game scenario. So Texas Tech has to win at West Virginia to make sure it gets into the Big 12 title game, especially if BYU wins, Houston wins, Utah wins, and ASU wins in Week 13. And going into week 14, that Texas Tech West Virginia game is probably going to be a night game on Fox, which they'll know what they need to do if they need to win that game or lose that game. But gee, you're looking like they probably need to win it to get in the Big 12 title game because these tiebreakers are wacky. So that's really the only way that Texas Tech gets left out of the championship game is if there are winouts, last two games by BYU, Houston, Utah, Arizona State, and they lose to West Virginia, which would be a wild ride. There's endless possibilities. Again, if you're looking up just at the likelihood that each one of these schools makes it, again, you're talking there's 15 games left. There's almost 33,000 possible outcomes with 9 possible championship game matchups, depending on the blend. Look, even Arizona has a 0.2% shot at getting in somehow. If there's just multiple losses and there's a 3-team tiebreaker scenario, the Big 12 is whack-o. But Texas Tech and BYU have commanding leads. And Cincinnati still has a shot with a must-win versus BYU. It's got to win out to control their own destiny. And Arizona State, Houston, Utah, and Arizona need help, folks. There are like endless possibilities, or over 30,000 possibilities still, with just 2 games remaining for most Big 12 teams. What a wild conference we are in. Hey, if you've liked this video, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe so you don't flunk realignment and this type of analysis. Leave a comment. Who do you think is going to make the Big 12 championship game? And folks, until next time, class is dismissed.